Hi, everyone. Maggie O here with Homeschool with Maggie O, and we're continuing our science curriculum review series. Today, we're looking at Real Science Odyssey, often abbreviated RSO from Pandia Press. And this one gives us an important contrast to some of the science programs we've already reviewed. Real Science Odyssey is a completely secular science curriculum. So, if you've been following this series and thinking, Maggie, these Christian science options are great, but I specifically need a secular science curriculum, this is one I definitely want you to investigate. And just as we've done with every curriculum in this series and the others, we're not going to declare it the winner. We're going to look at fit. How is it taught? How hands-on is it? How much work do the parents have to do? Can older students work independently? What ages does it cover? What worldview does it teach from? And I already gave you a tip on that one. And what does the curriculum actually look like when you open it up? So let's take a look. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to hop on over to their site. Right here at the beginning, I want you to notice their phrase, learn science by doing science. Learn science by doing science. That gives you a pretty good clue about what we're going to find inside this curriculum. This is not designed to be science where your child simply reads information from a textbook and answers questions. Hands-on science is a major part of the program, and the curriculum is divided into two broad levels. Here we have level one that we're looking at right now. It covers approximately kindergarten through sixth grade. But that's a broad range. So individual courses within level one have their own recommended levels. And then here we have level two. Level two is designed for approximately grades 6 through 10. And there's an important difference between the two. Level one is much more parent led. The science is presented in an engaging story like format, and then followed by hands on activities, labs, background information for the parent, reading suggestions, journaling, and other resources. Level two begins shifting responsibility towards the student. The text is actually written to the student so that older students can work much more independently. That's something we're going to look at in just a minute. So we're just kind of scroll through and let's look at the actual science subjects. Within level one, you're going to see different courses covering such areas as life science, biology, earth and environment, astronomy, chemistry, and physics. And here's something important. These aren't little 6-week science units. Most of these are substantial courses designed to let your child really dig into one branch of science. So rather than covering a little biology, a little chemistry, a little astronomy, and a little earth science every single year, Real Science Odyssey tends to let children explore one scientific discipline more deeply. And let's look at life level one first. This is designed for kindergarten through second grade. It's a year-long life science curriculum. And the course is designed around 36 weeks of material, generally doing science 1 or 2 days per week. And I want you to notice the progression they use. They describe it as, let me get there. They describe it as read, explore, absorb, learn. So, first, children are introduced to a scientific idea through engaging reading. And then they explore that concept through hands-on lab experiments. They're observing, they're recording, they're talking about what happened, and they're beginning to use the scientific method. They tell you exactly what supplies you're going to need. They have a option here, try before you buy. You know how I feel about that. I think you should, anytime have an option like that, you should utilize it. Pricing is very easily visible, and that's really helpful. Um, we already talked about the supply issue or the supplies you need. I showed you that. Let me go back. I'm trying to get back to where I was. Yeah, here's the supplies right here. Now, here's something I want you to consider before choosing a hands on science curriculum. Hands on means supplies. And a lot of the supplies in this course are normal household items, but there are also some things you may not have lying around. And in life science, some of your supplies are actually living things. So we're talking about things like earthworms, snails, butterfly larvae, and other organisms your child may observe. You're also going to want access to an outdoor area such as a yard, a garden, or a park. So, if you love the idea of getting outside and observing actual science, that could be a huge strength. If you're thinking, I want science to happen entirely at the kitchen table with almost no preparation, that's something to consider. And I already showed you the try before you buy. Now let's move up a little bit and we'll look at this biology level 1. This particular course is designed for grades 2 through 5. And this gives us a really good opportunity to talk about worldview. Real Science Odyssey explicitly identifies itself as secular. It says it right there. And when they say secular, they mean it. The curriculum is based on empirical science and does not incorporate religious explanations. In biology level 1, some of the unifying concepts include cell theory, genetics, evolution, and how scientists define and classify organisms. Evolution isn't simply mentioned somewhere in the back of the book. It's part of the framework through which biological similarities and differences are explained. So, this is something I want both secular and Christian homeschool families to understand before purchasing. If you're specifically looking for a secular curriculum that teaches mainstream scientific explanations without religious integration, this may be exactly what you've been looking for. If you're a Christian homeschool family who wants science taught explicitly through a biblical creationist worldview, this probably isn't your fit. And if you're somewhere in between, use the sample. Look at how the topics are presented. You decide whether that presentation aligns with what you want taught in your home. That's what curriculum fit is all about. Another thing I want you to notice is that we're still doing hands on science. Students aren't simply memorizing biological vocabulary, they're using labs, math, observation, and the scientific method. And the course is designed so that a parent does not need to have a strong science background to teach it. That's important. Sometimes parents see a serious science curriculum and think, I can't teach this. I'm not a scientist. The curriculum is written with the non science parent in mind. And this level, the course, at this level, the course itself is a consumable textbook. If you purchase the ebook version, it comes as a PDF and includes a separate PDF of the student pages. And if you have multiple children, additional student pages are available separately. So make sure you understand what format you're purchasing and what you need for each child. And I want you to notice the grade ranges between these courses overlap. Chemistry, right here, level one, is designed for roughly grades 2 through 5. Physics, level one, is for grades 3 through 6. So you can see there's an overlap. Astronomy, level one, is approximately get grades 1 through 4. So again, you are not choosing simply because your child is in the quote fourth grade. You're choosing an area of science that is appropriate for their age and their interests. Now let's see what happens when we move into level two. This is the next level. This is the biology level two, designed for approximately grades 6 through 10. And immediately you're going to notice that the structure has changed. Instead of one combined elementary course, Biology 2 uses three coordinated resources: a textbook, a student workbook. Here's the workbook, and a teacher guide. So you have the textbook, the student workbook, and the teacher guide. The textbook contains the actual science readings. And importantly, these readings are written directly to the student. That means we're beginning to move away from mom teaches science and we're moving toward the student is learning how to manage science. The student workbook is where students apply what they've learned. They are hands on labs, independent research, quizzes, unit assessments. Students are doing more than reading and repeating information. They're expected to investigate, analyze, and demonstrate understanding. And then we have this teacher guide here that I pointed out a minute ago. And I think this is particularly important for the homeschool parent who is not confident teaching middle or high school science. The teacher guide includes lesson plans, materials list, scheduling, answer keys, background explanations, math support, and guidance for the labs. So while your older child, is becoming more independent, you aren't simply being handed a complicated science textbook and told, good luck. This course is designed around 36 weeks of a 36-week school year, but the teacher guide gives you different scheduling options. You can structure this course around 2 science days per week, 3 science days per week, or 5 days per week. That gives homeschool families some flexibility in fitting science into the rest of their schedule. There are also microscope labs. Some are optional depending upon the student's level. So, again, this is actual laboratory science. If you're using this with an older student, and especially if you're considering high school credit, I would spend time reviewing the labs and course expectations before deciding exactly how you're going to document the course. And there's an important distinction I want to make. Real Science Odyssey Level 2 goes through approximately the 10th grade. So, yes, some of these courses can be appropriate for early high school, but this is not a complete 4 year high school science sequence taking you all the way through 12th grade. If your student needs biology, chemistry, physics, and advanced sciences throughout high school, you will eventually need to look beyond the real Science Odyssey sequence. That's different from something like Apologia, which has a much broader upper high school science progression. Neither is automatically better, they're simply different. And now, before I give you my curriculum fit lens, I want to show you something that I really want you to use. Pandia Press has an entire try before you buy section. And so you want to really kind of scroll through here and look at this. You can request samples from the different Real Science Odyssey courses. It's pretty cool. And these aren't simply two pretty pages from the beginning of the book. Their samples include things like the table of contents, resource lists, supply lists where applicable, readings, and actual activities and lessons. And you select the curriculum that you're interested in, and you just enter your email address, and they'll send you the sample download to your inbox. So take advantage of that, especially with Real Science Odyssey, because hands-on science requires commitment from both the student and the parent. Look through the entire lesson, look at the lab, look at the supply list, and ask yourself, could we actually do this? That's how you make a curriculum decision. Okay, let's put Real Science Odyssey through my Maggie O curriculum fit lens. For a teaching approach, this is very hands-on, inquiry oriented science. Students are only learning about science. They're not being asked to observe, experiment, record data, use the scientific method, and think like scientists. Level 1 combines engaging reading with parent led discussion and hands on exploration. And level 2 becomes increasingly student directed and academically structured. For parental involvement, for the level 1, I would call parent involvement moderate to high because you're reading, discussing, and gathering the materials, and you're helping to facilitate those experiments. And depending on your child's age, you're helping record observations. For level 2, that becomes considerably more independent because the textbook is written towards the student, but parents may still need to oversee scheduling, supplies, and laboratory work. For learning style fit, I think this could be an excellent fit for tactile and kinesthetic learners because students are actually doing science, just like the name says. It's also strong for visual learners through diagrams, observation, and lab work. And because younger lessons include discussion and read aloud material, auditory learners aren't being left out. If your child constantly asks, but why? Or can we try it? This is definitely one I would investigate. Homeschool philosophy fit, I see Real Science Odyssey fitting particularly well with eclectic homeschoolers. It can also appeal to families who value inquiry based education and experimental learning. There are some elements that may appeal to classical homeschool families because students study individual scientific disciplines in depth rather than constantly jumping from one topic to another topic. So, but this is not a traditional textbook and worksheet science curriculum. And for worldview, Real Science Odyssey is secular. It teaches science based on mainstream scientific research and theory without incorporating religious explanations. Evolution is taught as established science. For families specifically seeking secular homeschool science, that may be one of the biggest reasons to consider this. For families wanting explicitly Christian or biblical creationist science, this is probably not going to be an appropriate fit. Preparation. This is one area I want you to be realistic about. Hands on science requires supplies. The curriculum does a good job of giving you the materials list and instructions. Many supplies are ordinary household items, but you still need to look ahead. You may occasionally need specialized items. You may need outdoor access. You may want a microscope depending upon the course. So I would not call this completely zero prep science. As far as independence goes, low to moderate in the early years, much higher in level two. I actually like that progression because we're gradually teaching the student how to take responsibility for increasingly sophisticated scientific work. The academic depth. This is not science fluff. Even younger students are being introduced to legitimate scientific concepts and the scientific method. And the courses intentionally build concepts incrementally. Level two adds independent research, math, formal labs, and assessments. So if you're looking for hands on science, but you're worried that fun science won't be academically substantial enough, I think Real Science Odyssey deserves a closer look. Who I think Real Science Odyssey may be a fit for, I would put this high on your research list if you specifically want secular science. Your child loves experiments. They learn best by actually doing things, and you want real scientific vocabulary and concepts rather than watered down science. You value the scientific method. You want elementary science that becomes increasingly independent as your child matures, or you have a curious child who wants to dig deeply into one scientific discipline rather than skim across, many unrelated topics. Who may want to keep on looking? I would continue comparing if you want explicitly Christian science, you want biblical creationism integrated into your science curriculum, you strongly dislike gathering supplies and conducting experiments, you need an entirely independent science program for a young child. You want a completely online program, or you're specifically looking for one publisher that can provide your entire science progression all the way through 12th grade. And one more thing. If you're a parent who is intimidated by science, don't automatically cross this one off because it looks academically substantial. Use the try before you buy samples. Read the parent instructions. Look at the actual experiment. You may discover that you don't need to know all of this science before you begin. You and your child can learn that together. So, this is our look at the Real Science Odyssey from Pandia Press. And this is exactly why I wanted it in our science curriculum review series. It gives us a very different option from some of the Christian programs that we've already examined. It's secular, it's academically substantial, it's hands-on, and it intentionally teaches children to do science rather than simply memorize science facts. Does that make it the best science curriculum? No. It makes it potentially the right curriculum, the science curriculum for a particular child and a particular homeschool family. And that's what we're looking for. I'm Maggie O with Homeschool with Maggie O, your homeschool mentor, and I'll see you at our next science curriculum review. So until then, happy homeschooling.